Cherokee County, a place where violent crime is all but unheard of. Yet under the roof of the Ferris family's 10-acre estate, something far darker churned. Gary and Melody Ferris appeared at first glance to be the quintessential success story. Gary, a 58-year-old commercial real estate attorney, was a commanding presence, 6'5", tall, nearly 300 lb, brilliant in the courtroom and generous with his children's futures. Melody, his wife of 38 years, managed the sprawling property and household with unwavering devotion, raising 4 children: Chris, the eldest, Scott, the farm manager, Emily, the first daughter, and Amanda, the youngest. Yet beneath holiday gatherings and charity runs lay bitter rivalries. Sibling animosity simmered over who would inherit Gary's wealth. Whispered arguments over farm expenses gave way to full-blown confrontations. Chris accused Scott of mooching off their father's credit cards for golf outings and lake trips. Scott resented criticism of his management of the barn and livestock. Emily, buoyed by financial assistance for a down payment on her home, watched family drama unfold with mounting discomfort. And Amanda remained caught in the crossfire, torn between love for her mother and loyalty to her father. Melody herself was no stranger to controversy. Outside investigators later dubbed their household dynamic the Ferris wheel, a dizzying cycle of favor and betrayal. Unbeknownst to Gary, Melody had embarked on an affair with Tennessee farm equipment salesman Rusty Barton 4 years earlier, first as a caretaker for his ailing stepmother, then as a so-called helping hand that blossomed into clandestine romance. Rusty's name and birth control prescriptions tucked in her purse told a story Gary never fully confronted. Against this backdrop of infidelity, jealousy, and financial desperation, the stage was set for a tragedy that would test every strand of family loyalty. Evening fell on July 3, 2018, with no hint of the horror to come. Around 6 p.m., Gary asked Melody if she would prepare dinner. Her curt reply, "If you don't want it, then go get something to eat," would echo in her memory as their final exchange. That night, Gary retreated to the basement bedroom, where his sleep apnea machine and CPAP mask offered him respite from the world above. Melody and Scott, each in their own routines, assumed he was merely engrossed in work or rest. Scott, who lived in an apartment above the barn and oversaw daily farm operations, spent the evening with friends. He pulled into the driveway shortly after 11:30 p.m. and immediately noticed an unusual glow emanating from the burn pile, a mound of tree stumps and rotting firewood that Gary periodically set alight. Gary had indeed spoken of burning yard waste there, but the intensity of the fire that night struck Scott as odd. He made a mental note to ask his father about it in the morning. July 4th dawned quiet, with both Melody and Scott reporting no encounters with Gary. It was not unusual. Gary sometimes stayed in his basement retreat for days at a time. The Independence Day holiday passed in relative normality until late morning on July 5th, when Melody realized Gary had not emerged. The grandchildren, excited for a ride on the RTV, knocked on his door, only to find it locked and silent. Concern turned to terror as the family scoured every corner of the 10-acre spread. Pastures, barns, the pond's edge, no sign of Gary. Then, at the burn pile, Emily spotted bone fragments among the ash. "Those are human remains," she told Scott, dazed. Within minutes, 911 was called. The man who had towered over family gatherings, who had tossed horses a carrot and nurtured goats in the pen, lay reduced to skeletal fragments. Detective Daniel Hayes of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office arrived to a scene both gruesome and perplexing. Charred bone lay scattered among embers. Twisted metal remnants of farm equipment stood sentinel nearby. Forensic teams worked into the night. The first startling discovery, a .38 caliber bullet lodged in a ribbon, its tip fractured and embedded beneath the scorch. This was no accident or farm mishap. Someone had executed, and then tried to erase, a murder. Investigators combed the house and barn for clues. In the main kitchen, they detected small spatters of blood on the tile floor. On the wooden stairs leading to the basement, droplets formed a reluctant breadcrumb trail, and more stains dotted the basement floor itself. In the family room's humidor cabinet, they found Gary's shotgun. In the barn, a rack of hunting rifles and ammunition. But one pistol, reportedly kept in the basement, had vanished. Scott and Melody readily submitted hand swabs for traces of accelerant, fuel that could have intensified the burn pile inferno. Both tests returned negative, suggesting no obvious tampering with the fire's fuel source. Yet investigators remained unconvinced. To eliminate evidence of murder by immolation, someone would have to be both calculating and cruel. Then came another oddity. Gary's wallet, a staple of his daily attire, lay forgotten in his truck's console, a behavior he had never exhibited. Each discovery tightened the noose around the unknown perpetrator, drawing suspicion inward to those who had the most to gain, and possibly the darkest motives. As investigators pieced together timelines, the Ferris family's skeleton spilled from its closets. Financial records showed Melody's lavish spending in 2017-18, thousands withdrawn from joint accounts, charges at jewelers and high-end boutiques. Text messages confirmed a clandestine relationship. Melody's flirtatious exchanges with Rusty evolved into discussions of wedding bands and weekend visits. When Detective Hayes confronted her, she admitted to the affair, with the caveat that her marriage to Gary was still intact. Scott, meanwhile, believed Melody capable of any deed to protect her lover and preserve her lifestyle. He felt trapped in a Faustian bargain. Help run the farm, and Gary would continue to provide. But cross Melody and the financial faucet could be cut. "I've always had a gut feeling," he told Hayes. "If something ever happened to Dad, check Mom first." Chris and Emily, having benefited from Gary's generosity, down payments on houses, startup funds for businesses, were more ambivalent. Chris accused Scott of misusing credit cards for leisure, while Emily lamented their mother's increasingly erratic behavior. Amanda, the youngest, alone stood by Melody, viewing her mother's turmoil through the lens of unwavering filial devotion. In that web of financial dependence and marital betrayal, every family member had motive, yet only one had both the opportunity and the means to carry out a murder at close quarters and then transport a 300-pound body to a fiery tomb. Forensic breakthroughs provided the backbone of prosecution. Blood analysis authenticated that the droplets on the kitchen and basement floors matched Gary's DNA. Ballistics linked the slug in his rib to the same caliber retrieved near the basement scene. Cell phone location records, courtesy of an Android device with Google tracking activated, revealed that Gary's phone moved from the house to the burn pile and back on the morning of July 4th, precisely when Scott's device pinged miles away on a weekend outing. Detectives theorized two scenarios. Either the killer loaded the body onto the front bucket of the tractor or into the back carrier of the RTV. Both machines bore tire tracks and latent blood traces, though none led directly to the burn pile. Melody, a seasoned operator of both vehicles, could plausibly have overseen the transfer. At 130 pounds, she would need mechanical assistance, and the farm's heavy equipment offered ample aid. When Hayes pressed Melody on these inconsistencies, she shook her head. "I had nothing to do with his death," she insisted. "I don't even know who did." Yet each round of forensic results undercut her denials, consolidating the theory that she orchestrated the killing, even if the mechanics of her plan remained partially hidden. On June 18, 2019, after an 11-month investigation, Melody was formally charged with malice murder, felony murder, and making false statements. Prosecutors Megan Frankish and Jeffrey Fogus portrayed a calculated homicide fueled by sexual betrayal and financial greed. A wife eager to free herself from a 38-year marriage and claim her husband's multi-million-dollar estate for her lover. The defense, Michael Ray and John Luke Weaver, fought back fiercely. They offered alternative explanations. The blood droplets could stem from a dog bite, not a gunshot. Melody's slight frame rendered her incapable of moving a massive body without assistance, and Scott, resentful and physically capable, provided the real motive: ownership of the farm he managed. Scott took the stand under heavy scrutiny. At 6'8" and 280 pounds, he was the only adult physically able to heft his father's bulk. He denied any involvement, attributing his accusations of Melody to decades of family drama. Chris, Emily, and other relatives testified to Melody's volatile temperament and affair, while Amanda's tearful defense of her mother underscored the schisms ripping the family apart. Rusty Barton's testimony further complicated the picture. Initially, he told investigators that Melody had called him, nonchalantly stating, "He's in the burn pile." Later, he claimed the call had come after Gary's remains were discovered, an inconsistency prosecutors argued was a cover-up. His admissions of wedding band searches painted the affair as more than casual flirtation. In October 2024, after a trial lasting 3 weeks, the jury retreated for deliberations. 3 days later, they returned a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. Melody, though silent throughout most proceedings, finally spoke at her sentencing, delivering a dramatic coup de grace, an unsubstantiated claim that Scott was the true killer and she had taken the fall to protect him. The courtroom gasped, some in shock, others in anger, at this last twist in the Ferris saga. Judge David Cannon imposed life imprisonment with a 30-year minimum, plus an additional 5 years for evidence concealment. Melody remains incarcerated, still professing her innocence, still accusing her son. Today, the Ferris farm stands quiet. Goats bleat in empty pens, horses graze beneath silent barns. The Ferris wheel of drama and deceit has ground to a halt, leaving behind fractured relationships and unanswered questions. Who else might have helped transport the body? How did the killer conceal the mechanics of the crime so thoroughly? 4 children once bound by blood now bear the weight of public scrutiny. 3 believe their mother committed a heinous betrayal. 1 believes her mother remains a scapegoat. All have lost a father whose final days were consumed by family conflict and whose death exposed the darkest depths of love, money, and revenge. In Cherokee County, the Ferris name remains synonymous with a tragedy that defied the norm: a brutal murder hidden in plain sight, a mother condemned, a son accused, and a community left to wonder how well we ever know those closest to us. That is it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you think of today's video, and I will see you next time.